Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CFO Leadership Summit, FinTech Trends and Applications. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you will also have the opportunity to win one of several prizes. So be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules tab of the interface to see how you can earn points. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Alonso Ramos, Chief Financial Officer, the Intec Group, Inc. We're super excited to have Alonso with us for a keynote presentation titled The Modern Day CFO, Prioritizing Growth for Future Success. Welcome, Alonso. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Very pleased to participate in this event. And yes, we have a very interesting topic to talk about, the modern day CFO, prioritizing growth for future success. Well, CFOs in our modern days play a strategic role in which they are part of the discussion on how to grow their companies in the short and long term. This requires CFOs to be very involved with the operations and commercial activities, regardless of what industry they are. Their function is now very close to the CEO management team. He has become a close partner on achieving sustainable growth. Let's not forget that CFOs have a great responsibility in any company to report the reality, the current status, the tendencies, the recent opportunities to everybody. Think about stakeholders, board of directors, investors, creators, employees. But you think about it, how do the CFOs can really make a major contribution in the growth of companies? It all starts with a very responsible initial evaluation of the business. So let's jump into that and see how it looks. Initial evaluation. Before jumping into solutions, it's important to make a proper evaluation of the business and having a clear communication with all the leaders and the major functional areas regarding where are the opportunities and where are challenges. I want to start by saying let's do a benchmark within your own industry. It's very important to start by evaluating how organizations compare to similar ones in a specific industry. This helps to identify strengths and weaknesses as well as threats and opportunities. Possibilities to participate in conferences or associations within the same group where they can interact with other leaders and listening to their experiences. But sometimes the information available, and it has happened to me, is too broad or just covers like a big part of the industry, not a specific segment of the business. This is the situation we live in one of my jobs in manufacturing. So we ended up creating with a group of peers a benchmark group and defined a KPI scorecard. This resulted in a very useful information without compromising the confidentiality of any company. Information such as average revenue per employee is something that doesn't hurt to share as it is presented using statistics such as media average, mix, and max points, things that really don't hurt or is not going to reveal any of the confidential information. Another thing that I'd recommend to take a look at is to identify tendencies, short term and long term. This is a key component to evaluate the future. Changes in policies for government authorities, either within or outside your own country. Sometimes exchange rate fluctuations if you're dealing with the international market, supply chain constraints, they all can have a major impact on your business. For example, those companies trading with countries currently at war or a threat of war are facing increasingly changes in supply chain conditions, and have to look for alternative sources. This is known as the nearshoring or reshoring process, which we are currently seeing of sourcing moving from Asia to North America. In manufacturing, we have seen how even Chinese companies have moved production to countries such as Mexico. And Mexico is also playing offense by increasing labor costs and protecting social benefits. These are examples of how the tendencies in your market could have a major impact on what you're trying to achieve. And third point I would recommend to look at is to understand the positioning of your own company within the market. Understanding who your competition is will be very important, particularly to emulate what they do well, and also to offer what they're not doing. Where there are very similar providers of similar products, it is key to differentiate your product and services. For example, I have seen in the case of meat manufacturing providers, the products could be really, really similar and to some extent interchangeable between companies. However, providing better quality and reliable lead times could represent a major advantage, even when the products are that similar. I also want to move into what are the other ways that we can grow. Let's concentrate, there are many ways, but let's concentrate on things that finance people can do in order to support the business. And as such, let's separate it between organic and strategic growth. Let's get started with organic growth. It's one of the fastest and easiest way to grow because all you have to do is to look inside your current business and identify where the opportunities are. So, for example, start by calculating your own profitability. This is an area in which finance can make a major contribution. Preparing dashboards to visualize margins by customers and by product will help focus on profitable businesses and take into consideration the impact of the customer and product mix. This information should be widely spread in the organization, particularly to the production and commercial teams. In the case of manufacturing, the margin could be calculated in many ways, either in relation to direct costs or considering all variable and fixed costs. It's the same in the service industries like healthcare or consulting. Similar calculation could be done as they also have a fixed and overhead components. So a variable margin can be calculated. For any new business, a well-defined quoting process is crucial to ensure long-term sustainable growth. An example of this happens to me in the food processing manufacturing, where important factors such as volume and overhead were overlooked. As a result, in the long term, the margin kept shrinking, impeding sustainable growth. Also, don't forget, in the case of major investments, the calculation of an ROI will be a deciding factor to evaluate the return on investment in time and in money. Also, take a look at your current situation on price and cost. One of the fastest and most effective ways to improve profitability is through price increases, although it's usually never ideal to do due to its commercial implications. But it could have a major factor to create sustainable growth. It should always be evaluated in terms of the competition. Sometimes it is necessary to take the lead in the market. I've seen how in the automakers industry, the first companies taking price action put themselves in a competitive advantage in such a wide market, and sometimes the window starts to close. Similarly, achieving cost reductions could represent an opportunity. However, it is important to be creative and not just focus on directly cutting costs, but to look for opportunities to be more efficient through technology. For example, an ROI evaluation could lead to decisions to implement an automation or artificial intelligence that could pay off a lot over time. Another one that I want to mention is the elimination of losing segments. There are many businesses that companies maintain because it gives them a competitive advantage, or maybe in terms of offering a wider portfolio or it could simply be a traditional part of the business, but it's not challenged. I have seen this happening particularly in the food processing businesses where they keep a lot of products active. Sometimes the elimination of segments could also help focus on the core profitable business and improve overall profitability. Sometimes these segments could be sold or completely dismantled. More on organic growth. Once the internal opportunities are pursued, the next step is to look a little more abroad and a little bit more about expanding the current business. For example, what about diversifying the product portfolio? One of the most usual roadmaps to grow business is through the diversification of products. It's quite important to clearly identify opportunities, and this is very common to see failing new products and services that require major investment and require a lot of commitment of the resources in the organization just to see it not working in real life. I have seen many reasons for this failure. Sometimes it is because they're not innovative enough, organizations do not have a competitive advantage to enter the segment, or simply they don't perform a comprehensive analysis of how the market is going to respond to it. Another way to do it is to pursue new customers. Many times, this is an ideal initiative as it leverages the expertise of the organization. It's not that easy in terms that it requires either taking business from competition or finding new prospects. It is important to evaluate if any of the customers are in good financial standing and won't represent a problem long term. So it is not just about increasing the portfolio of customers, but acquire those in which the organization has a competitive advantage and supports their long-term strategy. Another one is to expand to new geographies. This could be a little more complicated as it implies going through import-export processes and particularly countries negotiations. It could be a great opportunity, especially with customers that already have a presence overseas. Pricing needs to be carefully considered. In some cases, it is advantageous to produce in one country and market in another. It is still quite important to understand the current conditions and long-term tendencies in the other countries, as many change over time. All these plans need to be evaluated in the long and short term. That's why it's very important to come up with a very specific strategic plan. So I want to pause a little bit and talk a little bit about the strategic plan because they're very important. The creation of top-line strategic plans represents a way in which finance can quantify their findings on the current business situations and the opportunities within current and expand businesses. Let's start with a question. How many companies develop strategic plans? According to a study published in Harvard Business Review, 7 out of 8 companies develop strategic plans. Sounds like a lot. However, about 90% of them fail on their objectives. Why do they fail in pursuing their growth? One of the major reasons for it is that the plan is not communicated to all the levels of the organization and it's not clearly understood by most of the employees or it's not even part of their objectives in terms of performance. As a result, it fails on the execution. This is an area in which finance can seriously contribute enormously by creating dynamic top-line projects along with different scenarios which could help shape the future and make conscious decisions. For example, in financial planning and analysis, the creation of budgets and the constant monitoring of results will help course correct against the long-term plan. It is also very quite important to keep weekly, daily, and on-demand KPI trackers that would allow the business to make corrections on time instead of waiting for the month-end financial closing. There's got to be instruments to do weekly analysis and have a constant communication of how the company is performing. Now, let's talk a little bit more about strategic growth. On the strategic growth, there are different ways to do it. One way is through the evaluation of mergers and acquisitions. It's one of the fastest ways to grow, really, although it requires more investment and it could be a little more risky. Going through proper due diligence is absolutely key and should be part of the contract negotiations. I have seen many cases in which lack of the due diligence or having provisions in the contract to protect the buyer in case of unwanted surprises could make a huge difference in the success of the acquisition. It should need to be taken very seriously, very carefully. It should not be an emotional decision. The advice of external experts could help on this process, and it's also important to define the objectives of the merger and acquisition. Many times it could be vertical integration, sometimes consolidation of customers, or the achievement of internal synergies. But it needs to be very well defined and it needs to make sense with the current business. Another way to grow is strategically is through initiating joint ventures. It's an alternative to M&A, could be less costly. Um, it operates usually two companies partner on going after a business together, each one contributing with their individual expertise areas, and the other one it might be lacking that expertise. So it's a shared risk. Put together a large number of resources to achieve synergies. This is a very common strategy when entering new businesses and countries, for example, in which one of the partners maybe has the technology but doesn't have the experience in that particular region or the knowledge of how to enter it or how to grow it. And well, let's not forget that another one could be an exit strategy. The organization might decide to pursue an exit strategy. It's very common. This should be planned carefully. It could take years to get there, and to the point in which it's really attractive for the investors to offer the business an adequate price. It's usually an objective for private equity companies. Essential part is to generate positive and sustainable EBITDA and have a consistent and diversified group of customers. Many investors, particularly private equities, try to turn businesses in a very short period of time, many times to the detriment of the organization and its long term success. Respecting the company culture and introducing changes gradually is really crucial to avoid dramatic changes in morale. Um, Last point I want to make is we relate to the personal structure. Personal structure, along with a strategic planning, it is crucial to have the appropriate number and time resources to execute it. For example, we need to determine what are the business needs. Sometimes it is necessary to build or rebuild the team and hire new resources to support the current and future business according to its objectives. The timing is crucial. Increasing SG&A too quickly could actually defeat the purpose, as the level of revenues might not be enough to cover it. So we need to be very conscious about making the decision. This is the reason why it's very important to set up priorities and go in steps. A second one is to identify critical positions and succession plan. Although positions are important, there are some leaders that are essential to business success, and a special retention plan should be put into place for them. A succession planning should also be elaborated with one or two individuals that could potentially take the position. Furthermore, many companies set up a long-term compensation program to ensure consistency in leadership roles, and that help protect those critical positions. And finally, create a retention plan. Besides monitoring headcount, turnover and retention, it is important to conduct a job satisfaction service encourage managers to have one-on-one with their personnel and identify areas of development. Creating backups for reposition and promoting cross-training could also help on people development. Um, let's with this, I conclude the presentation part of this webinar. And at this point, I think what we can do is to start moving into the Q&A section. Okay. Well, let's look at that. I will have a first question here that says, can you elaborate on the specific scenario planning techniques the CFOs are utilizing to navigate unforeseen disruptions and maintain business agility? Sorry, I have a few questions coming up at the same time. Um, yes, well, I think the strategic planning is very important to create scenarios. Um, it should be done top line. It should consider several quarters at least, if not several years. Many times prepare into a 3-5 year period. It doesn't necessarily need to go very deep in detail, but it should be a more top line and capture the major drivers of the business. So it could be that your business is impacted by exchange rate, by inflation, by sourcing, um, but a renewal of customers, by contracts. It could be a variety of things. So it is important to determine what are the drivers that can make an impact on the business, and then run scenarios for the long term. And in that sense, to respond to the question also, it is important to create different scenarios, different types of scenarios. A worst case, a most likely, a more positive, or if we make different decisions, what could be the impact on that specific scenario. Make it very dynamic. Sometimes people use special tools for this. I have done it in Excel many times, but it doesn't matter. What is important is that the concept of being able to be flexible on creating different scenarios that can help the company make decisions and understand how the future look like with them, it's is the crucial part of this process. Moving on to a second question, how do CFOs approach the development of the strategic frameworks that align with both short-term objectives and long-term growth goals? Well, I would say that it's very, very important to define this from the top line, from the top of the house. Define what are the goals, what is the mission, what is the vision that the company wants to achieve, and then set up goals going from top to bottom to the different departmental functions. Start defining goals for each one of them, each of the leaders, and start segregating these type of objectives through the entire personnel, all the crucial positions, and as far as you can go. I would say pretty much everybody in the organization. And the goals need to be well, is normally there are smart goals that could be quantified, that could be very specific, and there should be a process in which the company evaluates the performance and the progress of the employees and the alignment with these goals during the year. It should not be an annual conversation. If it is an annual conversation, many things could be missed. But if it is a quarterly conversation, probably many things will be covered. Sometimes it's necessary to course correct. Sometimes a goal could change. So it's sometimes it's necessary to be flexible and make adjustments along the way. There's a question 3 here. What best practices are CFOs implemented to retain top financial talent and ensure their teams remain Sorry, I lost the question. And ensure the teams remain motivated and proactive during uncertain times? That's a great question. Well, I will have a best practice. I have one that I want to share is to do one-on-ones, perform one-on-ones. This is something that CFOs can start with the direct reports. It should be like I would recommend. Sometimes they go by weekly. I try to do it weekly with the direct reports. There could be maybe a little monthly or bi-weekly, depends on the time, the availability. It shouldn't be too far long. And the purpose of these meetings is not specifically to talk about work, which sometimes it does because it's part of the whole situation. But it's an opportunity to have an open dialogue, a conversation with the direct reports, asking them how they're doing, how they're feeling, what are their impressions. Um, start being able to open up the dialogue so the people can come up with their own ideas, their own opinion, and have a real conversation with the manager. So it is important to start creating an environment of trust, which they know they could come up with anything and be able to talk freely. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a time to earn this trust and feel well comfortable on the conversation, but definitely and absolutely necessary. It could make a major, is one recommendation I can give, it could make a major impact on their performance. And it served this also as a mentor or training session because the idea is that the direct reports do the same one-on-ones with the personnel. And this continues to go through all the organization. People need to be heard, the opinion need to be considered, and there should be this open dialogue. A simple conversation could go a long way and can really make a huge dramatic change in the organization. Let's see if we can cover a little bit more of the questions. I know that we're about to run out of time. What strategies are CFOs employing to maintain a balance between being proactive in growing initiatives and remain flexible to pivot quickly in response to market changes? Um, Well, there's always need to be a short-term, long-term analysis going on in the organization. It should be as long-term as the strategic plan that I was mentioning, which is a 3, 5 year, but it should also be in a short term. And short term, I'm talking about weekly. I believe on doing weekly P&Ls with the sophistication of many tools we have nowadays, information that we can gather in the same company. We can probably calculate this all the time and evaluate it against your budget that you have it, but also evaluate it against your targets and be able to course correct because even though you have a very specific strategic plan and different scenarios built into it, it is important to continue to monitor the day to day and see if the market conditions are changing. Not like wait 3 months or next strategic plan or next budget or next. It should be you can even wait for the end of the month to start making adjustments. So you need to always keep this dual long term, short term vision on everything that you do. We have a new question here that I think we can still cover. Let's come on the last minute here. What are the concerns you face during KPI exercise of calculating profitability, price, and cost? How do you address same? Oh, well, the concern is that it really need to make business sense. And that's something that needs to be defined by the business. What are the real drivers for the business? What is really important that not only the finance people or CFO, but the commercial, the operations, what are the things that the KPIs that are really important for the business that are actionable? The people can really make decisions and can really make an impact for the company. The other concern as well is that it is important to create a way to monitor that, to make it visual to everybody, so people can see it all the time and have the information at hand quickly and not waiting for a monthly report or something after the fact that by the time it might not be ideal because it might be not dated anymore. All right, I think we have run out of time. The questions have been fabulous, and I wish we could take more. Turn it back to Nick for the ending of the session.
Great. Well, thanks again, Alonso, for such an incredible keynote. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. For those of you who earned points today throughout today's event, an Argyle team member will be following up with the winners in the next couple of weeks. This officially concludes the Argyle CFO Leadership Summit, FinTech Trends and Applications. Thank you again for joining us today and engaging in our content. We look forward to seeing you at our next Argyle Digital Finance event soon, which will be our Finance Solutions Expo, live look at cutting-edge tools on June 20th, 2024. Have a great rest of your day.